I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Canada, and one of my favorite artists of all time. I loved him in Max Webster. Was really intrigued with his persona in Max Webster because he literally stood out of the crowd in that band. Went on to a great solo career. Of course, we're talking about Kim Mitchell. Our entire interview, as he talks about the hits and some of the Canadians that he loves, the hits and misses, and everything else with Kim Mitchell on Rock History Canada. And
Doesn't it?
congrats on
Yeah.
the new single, man. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm pretty proud of it.
Well, I know that it took you a little longer to do. I read the press stuff. Um, but again, it's a song that's, we need this, man. We need this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the lyric really hit me too 10 years ago when I picked it up in a waiting room, just a waiting room on the table. And man, it sort of hit me. I was filling up in the room, in the waiting room myself. So
Yeah.
I, it, people seem to have sort of the same reaction as I did. It's like I've had people saying, "Wow, that's a heavy lyric. That's a cool thing, man," and it just happens to work right now.
I got in radio 37 years ago, and people started telling me things like little slogans in music, like, "Oh, in the 80s, you could go gold and ride the bus." And every musician says their new stuff is their best. But in this case, I listen to this. My wife says, "Who is that?" And I told her it's Kim Mitchell. She said, "Oh my God, it's a beautiful song." I mean,
Oh,
and we all
thank you
know,
to your wife.
let me interrupt you for a second. And we all know there are a lot of rockers. No, I'm not going to mention anybody, but sometimes I'll get a new album from a classic rocker and I really want to love it. And God bless them. But I'm going, you sound like you're on top of your game, man.
Thank you. That's quite the compliment. Really, really is. Because I don't know. We just do what we do, and I try and play it. I try and play below my waist. I try and get the. Everybody's like, "Oh, don't make music from here. Make it from here." I'm like, "No, don't make it from here. Make it from below the belt line." That's where the hip sway is.
Yeah.
Music is all about hip sway and groove and emotion. So. But thank you. Those are amazing compliments. Very humbling. When you're doing it, just your head's down and you're just working on the stuff and trying to get it to where you love it. I'm not thinking about the audience. You just and it was my producer that told me about that. He says, if we're gonna do this, there can be no outside chatter, no record companies, no ex-girlfriends or girlfriends or wives that are, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." Just it's going to be you and I making this. And he says, my job is to get your music to where you love it, where we're excited about it, and you're like, "Wow, I love this now," and that's all we're doing. So.
With even going back to Max Webster, you'd always come up with these like pretty tunes, and I know the rockers and proggers are the worst because I do a lot of Genesis interviews, and I just interviewed John Anderson, and that was a whole.
Did you? Yeah, those guys, you have to get out your slide ruler and calculator when you start talking to them, right?
But it's really different. I noticed that you start noticing different factions of fans. The proggers are hard, and I'm a progger. And
Yep,
when I release it, like I did a Steve Hackett thing, and I put it on there, and it's like they wouldn't accept me because they didn't know who I was because I'm a radio guy, and I just started doing YouTube 5 years ago. It's almost like I'd say, "Okay, I've interviewed all these guys. I know this guy. I've had all these albums. I had Selling England by the Pound. Leave me alone." But going back to Max Webster, and you still doing that with a new song, you do it. You have. Is it because a soft song comes out, it just turns that way? Because the rockers will go, "Come on, Kim Mitchell, rock."
Yeah, interesting comment. Reading comments, I can honestly say there weren't about Wishes. I haven't read hardly anything that was negative. The only thing that relates to what you just said was one guy went, "Yeah, that's a nice ditty. Now let's get back to the rock." It's like, dude, we're not 30. We're not in our 20s. It's this stuff was always part of what I did. Words to words, diamonds, diamonds. Um, one of my biggest songs was Patio Lanterns. Was not a rock tune. Easy to Tame. All We Are. Girls were coming to shows after that song. So that's always been part of my thing. And when I had the demos for all this, Greg, producer, said he heard it. I gave him the USB key of Shame, and he's like, "This is a side of you that that your audience needs to be exposed to again, and in a good way. Let's go in this direction. They know rock and roll duty, go for soda, I'm a wild party. That stuff's great stuff. That's what they know you for. But also there's this side of you that's wonderful, that is very musical, and let's focus on that. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, of course it did. How
Anyway,
did it happen for you though? Because you've always had the
oh
pipes for it, obviously.
well, I don't think I do, but
No one does. No
they
one
they
thinks they
just
do.
okay, all right, yeah, they were a classic rock station in Toronto, and they were thinking outside the box, and they thought, why not try somebody like Kim Mitchell? Like, we play his stuff, and we pitched them. I wanted to do something on a Sunday, so I had a meeting with them, and they're like, what a great idea. And then I didn't hear from them for quite a long time. And I thought I was going to do a Sunday night thing when cottagers are coming home. All these people I played to at resorts and stuff, and those festivals, the Corn Fest and the Fall Fest, um, and then they called and they go, our afternoon drive guy quit. Do you want a full-time job? And I'm like, that's a pretty big shift. Like, that's the second biggest shift in a major, and I have no training. So, but I thought, okay, sure. And man, I sucked for the first year. It was terrible. Like 4 months in, I went into my boss. I remember going, I can't handle the hate email. Like, it's just, I'm awful. I don't have any confidence. Like, I'll just get out of this. I'll bow out. And he's like, no, man, you have something. Like, let's keep working. Like, just work. It's gonna, this is a new thing for you. Everybody sucks when they start at something they've never done before. So let's give it a year. If in a year you still feel like this, and it started to turn around. That was the confidence I needed. And then it turned into something was all right. It did really well in Toronto.
Who's the PD?
Well, there's a few. It was Blair Bartram. He was my boss, and Dave Farrell was my boss, who was a West Coast guy for quite some time. So yeah, he was a good boss. He was just great. Worked with me. And
when I started doing 5 years ago, we started doing this channel, the big channel. I've got a few of them now. I was like a deer in front of a Peterbilt truck. I mean, I've been an announcer at that point for like 32 years, and I was kind of like, it's almost like you got to get into another skin. Then you go, oh, I can do this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you do. It's like that being a musician and performing too. You have to walk with a bit of strut happening to do what we do. I think in entertainment, period, whether it's dance, broadcasting, I think there's a certain, you can't be, it has to be, here I go, man. I'm going to be great.
I used to
that's not my personality. I'm a self-deprecating guy and walk around where I think, Tracy Johnson is a radio guru. And the first thing he said to his program directors, I got to sit in as an announcer on one of the sessions with PDs. And he said, the first thing you have to remember is all talent is insecure. They're all insecure. So watch your meetings with these people. You're dealing with someone who you can say the wrong thing to, and you're going to crush them for a month. They'll just be, artists are like that. Performers are like that. So anyway.
And radio announcers can be like that, because we're like that's the below the kitchen, where it sticks out in most houses over there.
Okay, yeah.
And yes, I've got reel to reels, 3 of them. And we're in a room, a 6x6 room by ourselves. I used to tell that to people. I'm going, you think I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy? When I get in front of the audience to introduce Kim Mitchell or somebody, everyone in that audience goes, okay, we're here for Kim. We know that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I have not heard the album,
good.
of course, because I don't have it.
No.
So I'm going to ask a generic question for you. I'm self-conscious.
That's fine.
See?
No. It's fine. It's fine. We're having fun.
Yes, I'm enjoying this. What's on there? Like, what do you got on there?
Well, some of it, I'd say Wishes is kind of represents what is on there. There's a couple kick-ass tunes, but it's generally, okay, here's how I like to describe it, John. I like to say that it's, my rock stuff is like walking into a room and yelling and screaming and kicking over a bunch of stuff and walking out and leaving. This stuff is more, there's dry ice, there's cool lighting, there's some cool rugs on some nice art on the wall. It's a little more atmospheric. guitar playing. A couple of the comments from my friends, I've had a couple of friends over and played it for them. And they're like, so the guitar isn't really you're not freaking out on the guitar a lot. They said, yeah, there's a couple spots you do, but I said, no, this was a song this was an album where my MO was to serve the song. So one song doesn't have guitar in it. It's a song called Georgian Bay. It has a 5-piece horn section, all Bruce Hornsby type piano part. It's like kicks along, fast tune. It's about a body of water here, Georgian Bay. And they're like, where's the guitar? I'm like, the guitar, listen, I said, listen to the energy being transmitted from that song, from the horns, the piano, the bass part is smoke. And I said, why put a guitar on just to put a guitar on? Because I'm Kim Mitchell and it's my album and you need guitar on it. It doesn't need it. I sat back and I went, I'm not going to add anything here. Like, it's not going to make it better. It's not going to make it more intense. I love the way this is right now. So,
Bruce Hornsby didn't have piano on his last album. Not the new one, the one before this one. This is the sequel that just came out. I got it early, and it took me 3 weeks to get used to it. And and you'll appreciate this, Bruce Hornsby brought me to the blues. Bruce Hornsby brought me to Metheny-esque, or even Grateful Dead, which I didn't like because he had played with Jerry. Bruce Hornsby, I trusted because I loved his voice so much, it almost didn't matter. And I love the fact that he was brave.
He is brave. He's brave. He's an insane piano player. You don't meet a keyboard player, a piano player who doesn't remove their hat and take a knee when that name comes up. He's that good. I know some cats here in Toronto that are insane piano players. And as soon as you mention Bruce Hornsby, they're like, eat Burton Cummings. Same thing. Like, Burton, your rock chops on the piano. Like, he goes, yeah, man, I'm just nowhere near a guy like Bruce Hornsby, though. Like, to come from, that's cool. Big respect for Bruce Hornsby. When he does a live version of End of the Innocents that blows my lights out. There's a soprano sax solo in the middle, and I'm like, all the back phrasing that he does. If you know what back phrasing is, the pulse is doing this, and he's singing way behind like Sinatra used to do. All that back phrase. The band's like got this thing going. They're like catching up, in a beautiful way, though.
I'm doing a thing on Bruce, so I'll include that. I've got a lot of musicians because he comes up a lot in my interviews, and people just go on. I'm going, well, I should just combine these and do a thing on. The last time I talked to him. The last time I talked to him was 92. I've been trying to get an interview ever since. He doesn't like to talk to rock. He thinks I'm just a rock guy, but I do everything. His twins were babies, and he was practicing 7 hours a day.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's huge. He must have had one pissed off wife then, because young babies, looking after young babies.
One of my, I asked yesterday, by the way, this is weird. Let me interrupt myself again. Now, with the success in the U.S. or their lack of, because everyone loves you so much here, my site is 80% American. 80% Americans watch my videos, even though I'm a Canadian, and I don't go. That's why I created Rock History Canada for the people who haven't crossed over. But at the same time, I asked Rock History Music fans about you, and I went, of course they know him. And then a friend of mine said, well, no, he got like cheated down there. He should have been. There's no reason why you should have been just as big down there. But when I put the questions up, what do you want to ask Kim Mitchell? All my American friends, they all seem to know you really well.
It's funny.
Am I being naive?
I don't know how well or how not well I'm known down there. We spent a lot of time down there. We opened up for Rush. We opened up for REO Speedwagon. We opened up for like a ton of bands. Some of the Southern bands too. Lots of them. I mean, Cheap Trick. They played up here once, and my son was standing with me, and Rick goes, your dad's a genius, right? And I thought he was. I started to laugh. He's like, no, man, he is. He's like, I was like, Rick. And you ask a guy like Rick, he's a great guy. He's like, Rick, how you guys doing? He's like, man, 5 guys, 4 chords. That's us. just there's great stories on the road with those guys. They're a lot of fun and a great band. He's a funny dude too. Like, I mean, funny as in comical. Would always make me laugh.
Well,
Um,
it's kind of interesting
but
when
I
you
don't
meet
know.
someone,
Your
though.
question was, are you being naive? I don't know what's going on down there. What didn't go on. I'm happy with my life and how it turned out. Um, some people ask me that, and I go, I'm really proud of the success I didn't have. And that might sound odd, but there's so many successful artists that I scratch my head at, like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Like, there's some great music. There's great music everywhere. Some of the big, huge stuff, it sometimes, I hope I don't say the wrong thing here, feels like it's the big media machine manipulating and, we want this and this is what we're after. And these artists go, yeah, we'll deliver this. They're in the music business.
Yeah.
To me, I've always just kind of went, oh, even a song like Easy to Tame, which had a country feel. Oh, there's something. I'm gonna get on that and ride it. And it was all about just bringing a song to its natural conclusion for me, and then I'd walk away from it and leave it, and like that's it. I was never trying to chase a trend or so whatever success or whoever knows me, my music, and likes it. Thank you, and I'm proud of that. But I'm proud of, I don't know.
Yeah, but how could you not have a little country in you? How can an artist, usually, especially growing up in Canada, growing up in Ontario, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are. Even the new one has a slight country.
Yeah, my children said that. And I said, well, kids, in Sarnia, when I was 17, before I started to play show bands and head my little ass off to Greece on a Greek island, I said, your dad played in a band in Sarnia, Ontario called Dick Dixon and the Stone Mountain Band. It was played in a country band for a summer. The bass player was a cop. And like playing at this bar, doing all the country stuff.
By the way, you seem to have really paid attention to drummers. You have a long list of even the guy from ARW. What was his name? The guy who just did John Anderson stuff on Rockland.
Oh,
Molino. Yeah,
he's amazing.
Yeah, he's crazy. My son tried to track him down. My son's a very serious drummer. He's Neil Peart sent him sticks when he was 9 years old. Concert use sticks. I forget who's the Anthem guy. Used to be a rocker. The Anthem publicist guy.
Andy Curran.
Andy Curran sent him a letter and says, Neil saw your drumming. Here's some concert use sticks.
I'm working with Andy.
Are you really? In what capacity?
Andy, and he's Elmo Combo Records. He's with Elmo Combo Records now, and that's who I signed with.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was watching the video.
Yeah.
So
Andy's with him.
You know what? He was ready to quit drumming. Then he see little things like that, and then he gets these sticks.
Yeah,
but drummers,
beautiful.
You seem to know your drummers.
They have a tough gig. Drummers. I was noticing this the other day that we get together. We have these gentlemen musician dinners, and we go to probably the cheapest restaurant we can find. Now with COVID and all that, it's a little bit different, but it's just a bunch of local cats, studio guys, a singer, this and that. All the drummers, they'll be at the table, and they're always talking about the gear they're buying. Oh, yeah, I bought the Billy Cobham kit, or no, I got a new Gretsch kit, or I ordered that Sonar kit. I'm like, hey, you guys you have to spend a lot of money. Like, a guitarist can buy one guitar and have it his whole life, and an acoustic guitar. A keyboard player can buy one keyboard and buy all the software for like $60. Drummers are ordering new drum kits all the time. I'm thinking, you cats spend a lot of dough. You have a tough gig back there. And then it's an acoustic instrument. You're fighting through some rock band to hear yourself and have some sort of finesse. So when somebody does it well, I bow to their greatness and I go, I want to play with them. And I think I've played with some awesome drummers.
Now it's my memory, speaking of drumming, when Atlanta Miles was opening up for you, you came to Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
What was the deal with all the drummers?
Oh, the 3 drum kits?
Yeah, that's so cool. Who came up with that idea?
I did, because My bass player Peter Fredette played drums. That would be Lou Molino at the time, I think. And Greg Wells, who produced my album, was in the band at 17. He was a drummer. So all three of these guys played drums, and I'm like, can you program on your keyboards the bass part to Battle Scar? He's like, oh yeah, it's easy. Like this is early days of so he did. I go, okay, let's get 3 drum kits for this, and then that went like, well, let's open the show with the 3 drum kits. You guys doing a thing, so it was fun. It was fun for us. It was nice musical ideas.
One of my favorite concert moments. I just love that. I went, what?
Yeah, it's nice. People love that. It's entertainment, right? But it was nice. They were all great drummers. I was like, wow.
You know,
Any one of you guys can sit in the drum chair.
one of the guys from Bay City Rollers died. I don't know if it was last night. I do a lot of obituaries.
Oh,
God
no.
knows I wouldn't have any money. The station started doing well, the channel, because we do these long obituaries. And I'm a radio guy. I know how to talk, you know.
Mhm.
But, and I saw the headline, and at first I saw Mitchell dead, because I think his name is Ian Mitchell, or, yeah. And I went, what? Kim Mitchell, you could have waited. But
Yeah.
it wasn't you, thank God. But how do you
Not
feel that so
yet.
many rockers passing away? I mean, I know some of it's lifestyle, but some of it's age.
It's scary as shit, man. It really is. I'm sorry to hear about that. And here's the deal: when you're 68, lots of them are going in their late 60s and earlier too, of course. But no, it's part of life. You can't dwell on it. And I did 4 years ago have a major heart attack and almost did die. But it was in the Widowmaker. They call it the Widowmaker because not many people get through it, and it was 100% block. But I'm still here.
What did that change for you? I mean, that has to change the trajectory of your life.
Well, you stop eating certain things for a while, and you take a look at, you just have to tune it up, and I did. I lost some weight. I was getting a pretty big gut on me at the time. I remember 2 doctors, because I have arrhythmia problems too. If anyone out there has those, I have electrical problems too. I'm a poster boy for atrial fibrillation. I've had the paddles like 7 times in my life.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
By the way, what's the painting?
It's a painting by the keyboard player Terry Watkinson of Max Webster. So the guy who did all our covers, the Blockhead covers, and that's Terry Watkinson painting. It's called Bar Babies. And I was in a relationship at the time, my girlfriend, and I loved it. We went to one of his exhibits and I saw that and I was like, man, I love that. And she bought it for me.
That's amazing. I mean,
yeah. And Terry, the likeness of Terry is actually the person right at the back.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah. It's kind of his mouth and everything. Yeah, he's a great artist. When Max Webster ended, Terry Watkinson ended up being a medical illustrator. This was before computers, so he would sit in on operations and watch surgeries and scrub down and taking pictures, and it was crazy. And they said once, usually people get a little squeamish and sometimes even get weak in the knees and have to sit down for a second when we're, cutting up this and that. And he goes, I'm in rock and roll. I can take anything. That's what he said to them. So,
yeah, he always had an interesting look, obviously he obviously went for that.
He brought a really interesting thing to Max Webster, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Let Go the Line was his, right?
Yep, it was one of our biggest songs, radio songs, that and Paradise Guys.
That was a different song for, I mean, I love that album. That album meant a lot to me. I was 19,
It's on A Million Vacations, right?
Yeah. Did you know that he had something with that as soon as you heard it?
Yeah, we all did. We all loved Terry's writing. I love Terry's writing. A lot of stuff. There's one song that I always wanted to record of his that we never got around to. It was called Silvery, like the color. That's everything is kind of silvery. It was a beautiful song. And then another song called Suicide Wings. Was it? I'm thinking desperate things, eating suicide wings. Oh, he's such a great writer.
So you guys have there was no bad blood in Max Webster, right? You guys got along pretty well.
not for me. Maybe they did towards me at some point. I can't speak for all of them. I can say that people are like, "Oh, are you going to do this?" It's like, no. The drummer Gary, he's done. He's retired and just happy doing what he does. Mike Tilka, the bass player, the first bass player, he's up in north of Toronto a couple hours and has a wonderful life and plays on the weekends, little gigs, little bass stuff. People are doing little things, but no desire to get the band back. Hey, let's get the band back together.
Well, you've been a
And,
solo artist way longer than Max Webster was a band. I mean, that's kind of your thing, you know?
that was a mistake too. Me being a solo artist, when Max Webster was finished, I went home to write for a year, and then I thought I'd like to just play in a band, and I put the word out. Does anybody want a guitar player? Nobody called.
What?
Yeah, nobody called. So
That makes no sense.
so I thought that's how I went solo. I was like, well, I guess I'll just form a band myself. Then I guess I'll try and do that.
That has to be a perfect storm, though. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, that must have been a weird anomaly. That's like an anomaly. I mean, that.
No, I put the word out. It's like, honeymoon suite. Whoever was out there was like, hey, you guys want a guitar player? I'm available. I'm cool to just join a band now after a year. I'm just writing songs at home, and I'd love to play in a band without sort of the headache of you're the guy,
Yeah.
And so I'm waiting for the phone to ring and nothing happened. So I'm like, okay, all right, here I go with I got the song "Go for Soda." All right, I'll try to record that.
By the way, how many "Go for a Soda" jokes have there been? I mean, one guy asked last night. This was before you answered. One guy asked last night, "Can you ask him if he went for a soda after recording Go for a Soda?" I'm going, well, that's an easy one. I understand.
That's yeah. First of all, it's "Go for Soda." Everyone says "Go for a soda." It's "Go for Soda." That's okay. That's a small one. Yeah, there's jokes. The joke I hear the most of is about patio lanterns. Oh, patio lanterns. It's like, I've never heard that. It's okay.
I've got the interview that we've got with Steve Burgess, who used to write for Maclean's magazine a lot. He'd be the filler for the back page. He was $1 a word guy, and he still writes a lot. He gave me hold on. You can't see them all, but there are a lot of reel-to-reels up there.
Oh yeah.
You're in there. When you recorded Patio Lanterns, you were doing the tour. Anyway, he said to me, "Kim Mitchell, most enjoyable interview. Next to Doug Bennett. No one beats Doug Bennett. God bless him wherever he is."
Yeah.
Funny
well, that's
guy.
Nice.
Huh?
That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, he enjoyed it. Peter Fredette, how did you meet him? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, Peter Fredette is like the Kenny Greer of Tom Cochrane or the Edge of U2. He's been a big part of my thing because of what he brought to it. By chance, another guitar player is recording my mini album. Doing some demos of stuff I wrote in a studio. And as we're recording the demos, I asked this other guitar player, I said, "Do you know somebody who plays bass or guitar or keyboard that can, I don't know, sing or something like that?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "I know a guy in Ottawa. His name's Peter Fredette." So I said, "Well, can you call him and maybe he can come down in the studio and let's see what he wants to do." And so he came down and he played guitar at first because we had a bass player. So he's like, "Yeah, that's good rock and guitar. That's great, man." And I had written "All We Are" and had shelved it because I thought, I don't know, maybe someday I'll follow my dad's advice and get a girl in the band. Because he's like, "You should get a girl in the band and then you'll go somewhere." I'm like, okay, yeah. And I thought, well, "All We Are," that my nice female part, "Don't ask me if I'm still." And I said, "Peter," I said, "Do you sing at all?" And he goes, "Yeah, a little bit." That's what he said.
A little bit?
So, yeah. So I said, "Okay, let's try this song." I think it was "Cameo Spirit" or something, "Cameo Spirit." And all of a sudden, it's just the way he was singing. I was like, whoa. And then he did a couple, whoa, all this thing. Well, we're just kind of auditioning. And I'm like, dude, I said, I'll yell, you sing. Okay, there, you're in the band. Do you have a van? You're in the band. So he's been amazing. We're family now because we've been together 36 years, right? That's two of his marriages and one of mine combined. That's longer than all of it, all of that stuff. So I'm grateful for running into him so many years ago.
Says something about you, though, my friend, because sure, as you can imagine, after talking to John Anderson and all the turmoil in that band and the infighting, Genesis is a good example of the opposite. They all seem to get along for the most part. Gabriel and Banks, not so much, but to have someone that you not only know as a friend, but you work with, that's sometimes rare in rock and roll. That's a whole other side of you and Peter Fredette.
I asked Joe Perry that once. I said, because you kind of hear that Aerosmith don't get along too well too. It's like, well, I said, I didn't specifically ask him like, I hear you guys don't like each other. It's sort of like, what? Why do bands go out if they don't like each other? Because I hear the Stones don't even see each other. Richards and they don't even see each other. They're in different dressing rooms, and you know, 10 seconds before they're on stage, they're standing beside each other, walking up the stairs. But which may be the case or not, that we don't really know. And Perry goes, these people have expensive lives, man. They have staff, they have compounds, they have lots of stuff that needs to be paid for. I'm like, really? Like they're worth bajillions of dollars. Yeah, but their lives are spending bajillions of dollars by the minute too. So that's just what he said. But I love Peter. We've locked horns a couple times, but
Well, if you didn't tell me that, I'd know you'd be lying because it's impossible, right? Not after
yeah,
all those
yeah,
years.
yeah. We just get through it. It's always he would be always the one to sort of break the ice and make peace. You know, if we got pissed off at something, Peter was always the one who's like, he always calls me Joe. Hey, Joe, because my first name's Joseph. It's like, hey, Joe, yeah, I'm going to have to come over there and give you a slap. Just sort of say something goofy like that. You brought up Genesis and stuff like that. That's it. We're Max Webster's playing on stage, and we're opening up for Genesis in drum, and we're playing away. I look back at our drummer, and our drummer's sweating like crazy. It's an outdoor gig. It's hot, but I'm like, wow, why are you really sweating? I said, and in between the song, I went, kind of like, or no, actually, we were still playing. I go back and I'm yelling at him during the song, like, you okay? You gonna make this? And he's like, doing this, and I look over and it's Chester Thompson and Phil Collins standing on the side of the stage watching him. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then the same thing happened with us with Eddie Van Halen. We're playing with Eddie Van Halen, and I look over and him and Sammy are on the side of the stage. I'm like, oh no. But that was a fun one. That was a fun gig. My lighting director, when Van Halen was on, we were all on the side of the stage. My lighting director, my sound man, and myself on Eddie's side. There's an anvil case. Do you know this story?
No.
Okay. So there's an anvil case and then the side of the stage. So you know where the side of the stage. And on the anvil case is a bunch of drinks. So Eddie's got his, Gatorade, his water, whatever else he's drinking. There's 4 or 5 things there. And every once in a while he comes over and grabs a sip of something. And once he comes over, and some bass drums are doing something, and he comes over and he goes, oh man, this is an outdoor stadium too. He goes, sounds like shit on stage here today. And my lighting guy goes, oh yeah, you should hear it out there. Like, what did you just say to Eddie Van Halen? Because it kind of did sound rough out front.
Oh my God.
Both my soundman and I looked at him. His name is Mitch, and we're like, dude, what? And actually, Eddie started to laugh. So that's all good.
On the new song you mentioned, Before I Die,
Yeah.
You know what? I'm 60. And I just turned 60 in February, and I'd never noticed an age in my life, ever. Never paid attention. I'm healthy, walk a lot and exercise. But when I turned 60, I started watching the clock a little bit. I realized you can't cheat the hangman, to quote Pat Simmons of the Doobie Brothers. When I saw that lyric this morning, I thought, are you aware? Are you watching yourself? I mean, we talked about the heart attack, but...
Yeah. a little bit. I'm living my life though. As even my cardiologist said, man, if the lamb looks good on the menu, go ahead. You got to live your life. You really do.
Yeah. Well.
Um, and so that's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah. But yeah, that's a powerful line in the song "Wishes" because it kind of sums up that it's okay to wish for wealth and beauty and all that stuff, but there are simpler things also that are going on around us when you look, and those are the things that we hope you get before you die.
Also, it reminded me of I have a few friends who are moving from Calgary to Kelowna, for instance, which is where we're heading after we're finished here, moving to smaller places. And I got a vibe of that, of course, with the
Mm-hmm.
video. By the way, who did the video? It's a great video.
Darren is his name. We worked together a lot. He's a sort of an animator, more of an animator kind of guy, but just a friend and a fan, and gives us a good deal. It's kind of a side thing he does. So, and the most of the content was from me. I did the filming and then sent it to him, and he sort of threw it all together. So.
By the way, what do you drive? What was that with the? What do you drive?
What do I? Oh, in the car?
Yeah.
That's an SUV.
Is it okay? All We Are. What inspired you?
That song started with me buying a keyboard. And I hadn't played keyboard. I didn't have one as a writing tool. And I came home off the road with Max Webster. I wanted to write. I thought, I'm going to have a keyboard because I tape machine, a little thing. And so I started to play the keyboard. And next thing you know, I had the verse chords to All We Are. I was like, oh, well, I started to sing. Da, 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 and I was just humming a melody. And then Pi Dubois, the lyricist that I worked with at the time, he was always delivering me stuff, always dropping stuff off or putting stuff in a duffel bag and here, read this when you get home, briefcase or whatever. So I'd always have pieces of his work laying around on a desk. And I saw All We Are is all that love. That's how it kind of came together. All of a sudden, I had the verses. And then I think it took a little while to get the chorus lyric. Don't ask me if or whatever. There is no chorus. As Bob Ezrin said, someone said, what do you think of this song? Isn't it really good? He goes, it doesn't have a chorus. So, okay.
That song has legs. To me, I mean, it's so cliche to say this, but it sounds as good today. I mean, again, we were listening to it last night because I was starting to put my note. I mean,
can I tell you something? Can I tell you something about my record, The Big Fantasizes? We have some live tracks on it too. We have a full-length studio recording and some live tracks. It'll be a separate disc, a separate piece of vinyl and digital thing. And one of the tunes is All We Are Live. We did another live version of All We Are on there. So, and it sounds good. This is a compliment to Peter's impact in the band with, because he sings so great there, is that a couple stories, but one of them, I mean, there's the one where Shania Twain auditioned him, and when she opened up the studio door, she greeted Peter at the door, flew him to the States to audition for her band. As soon as the door opened up, she started singing All We Are. Don't ask me if I'm still in love. And I thought, wow, for her to know that, Pete, that's just so cool. That's amazing. But the one that I laugh at is that the number of times on the road, John, after the show, like, okay, and all of a sudden, on the door, knock, knock, knock on the door, and there'd be some guests wanting to come in, and sometimes there are females, and I'd be like, hey, how you doing? I'd be like, is Peter here? they go walking right by me like I was just the doorman. Okay, sure.
Oh my God. That song that's probably, that song made me cry when I first heard it. I was in radio. I remember listening to it and going, because it has that's
thank you.
Strong emotionally.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a fun one to play live too, because for two reasons: I get to listen to Peter, and second of all, I get to stop singing. I get to stand back and play.
Michael Potter asks, is there a meaning to that thing you do with your fingers on your head, wiggling your finger? Is there meaning to that?
No, there's no meaning to that, Michael. I don't know this thing. I don't know. No, it's just a stupid thing that I started to do. I'm not sure. No, there's no meaning.
Okay, okay. Bob.
Sorry to disappoint, Mike.
Oh, Bob.
I hope you won the bet.
Bob. I don't know if you know Bob Reed. He's a radio guy from Toronto.
I do know that name.
Yeah,
Why
Bob
do-
Reed. He says, "Easy to tame. Is it hard to? Oh, easy to tame the three. What are the three wishes? That's what he asked.
we never tell. We made a
Oh,
thing
it
that
is
we would
something.
never
It is
tell.
something.
We made a thing. Well, it says right on the cover, the three wishes all begin with the letter H,
Yeah.
and that's as far as we take it.
I get
No
a
one
feeling
will
it's
ever
not
know.
PG. That's all I have to say.
It might
It
not
might
be.
not be. Rockland Wonderland. Okay, that is my favorite. That's my favorite thing. That song stopped me in my tracks when I heard that. I remember going, the cliche staring at the speakers. Kim Mitchell, give me a
Right.
soundbite, please.
The thing.
Yeah,
Sort of a story around that guitar sound that I've been asked a million times about that guitar sound. It was such a simple thing. I just plugged into a Rockman in Los Angeles with Paul DeVilliers, who had done Yes stuff. He did the Mr. record. Take these broken
yeah,
wings.
yeah.
We just got this beautiful guitar sound out of a Rockman, which was Tom Schultz's invention. It was looked like a Walkman, but it was called the Rockman. I love the lyric of Rockland Wonderland because we used to play a place called Canada's Wonderland in Toronto,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a story about that. Close companions with no deep meaning. It's about the concert venue. Here's an open suggestion: are you all in for some dreaming? It's about an audience and brother to brothers. That all that stuff. The song was special to me because every time I hear that song, two things come to mind: is how terrified I was walking towards the stage because we're doing well then, and I think the place held 15,000 people, and we sold out 3 nights. And I remember being how terrified, my knees kind of shaking. And then I also remember Burton Cummings saying, "Your album Rockland," and he goes, "That album was on my iPod when they had iPods or whatever the heck." He goes, that was one of my favorite records. I would listen to that record every day." And I was blown away by that compliment because he just loved that record. So,
Don Baird, the album Oral Fixations. How come I can't
Don
find
Barry,
it?
yeah, I know Don Barry. I see him following me. So yeah, Don Barry.
He says, "Why has Oral Fixations disappeared? He can't get it."
I know it's deleted. That's a frustration of mine because I'm proud of that record. And there used to be a kid lived in my neighborhood. He drove a Trans Am, a really souped up, natural aspirated.
With the funky chicken on the hood.
No, this was just a beautiful, sexy manual transmission. Sounded amazing, and he's kind of a young kid.
Yeah,
and he was in our neighborhood somewhere, and he'd listen to the album all summer once, and because he'd drive by and I'd hear like the songs off that, and I'm really proud of that record. I wish if people want to go deep in my career, go listen to that record. It's online, but you can't get it. It's in the delete bin. I need to speak to my manager about that because he was the record company at the time, and it's like, yeah, it's deleted. It's like, well, undelete it. Like, let's get this thing so people can hear it on Spotify and stuff like that.
For our Canadian channel, we're asking. I was just asking Derry yesterday from Honeymoon Suite, and he said the Guess Who: Burton Cummings, Randy Bachman. By the way, why do people say Bachman when it's actually Bachman? That's so weird.
Bachman.
Yeah,
Bachman.
It's strange. Bachman. But Bachman Turner Overdrive sounds better than Bachman Turner. And people get,
it does.
And he told me he doesn't care. He said, well, "I don't care. It doesn't matter. Buy the records."
Right? Yeah. That sounds like him.
So, having said that, who's your favorite Canadian artist? I know it's so generic, but artists that you admire. You can name more than one. But we're doing a compilation.
Okay, no. Ian Thornley.
Oh, really?
Guy blows my lights out. Yeah, such an amazing musician, such an intense, emotive, expressive guitar player. Does all the things that I wish I could do, and yet he sort of a bit of a mutual admiration society there too. He's a fan, but because we've done gigs together, so I like him. Big respect for the iconic writing of Bryan Adams, who I toured with for 7 weeks off Reckless. When back in the day, we went all through the states. So those shows were all sold out. And like, how many people can write that many great songs? Now, some people will go, I don't like Bryan Adams, but it's like those are iconic songs that are around forever. Respect for him. You mentioned Alana Miles, one of the greatest rock and roll voices ever on that woman. I just loved her voice. That's all for now.
That's all for now, folks. I don't know guitar, so this guy said, Johnny M says, what influenced your signature? Is it legato?
Signature legato. Yeah, I know what that is. Signature legato means you're not picking every note. Do it lazy man. Pick once, get as many notes out of the as you can before you have to pick again. Who influenced that? I don't know. My early guys who I really liked was Mike Bloomfield and obviously Jimi Hendrix. Those guys were not legato. The first legato guy who really kind of hit me was a guy named Alan Holdsworth. So, here's the reason why. What's the guy's name?
Johnny M. He's on YouTube.
Okay, Johnny M. The real reason is I'm left-handed. I play guitar right-handed, and my right hand has always sucked. So that's my picking hand. And it's just something that I ignored my whole career. I just like, okay, yeah, this will do what it needs to do, as opposed to like, I'm going to spend the next year and a half working on my picking. Plus, there's something about picking every note. All these guys, these shredders and stuff, like it exhausts me after a while. I don't think you need to pick every note. It's impressive, and it has an intense thing about it, but I like a little more grease and reckless, and I like hacking my way through some stuff. I think that stuff, there's a lot of mojo in that than sort of the people have like everything's perfection, everything's like, it impresses the living daylights out of me. I can never do it. So that's what I'm saying. I like it when you make mistakes.
This guy must be a Quentin Tarantino fan because his username on YouTube is Royale with cheese, please. Any outtakes of Max Webster still available out there someplace?
Outtakes.
Songs not used?
Yeah, there is. Pardon my voice. I've been singing today. So, yeah, I have tapes. That there's alternate versions. There's stuff that, take one was terrible. I'm assuming he's like, why don't you put that out? That's not a bad idea. Just start throwing some of that stuff up online.
Okay.
See, we really did suck.
Yeah. I don't listen to, I don't listen to a lot of that stuff. I remember I caught myself saying, I can't wait till this outtakes Led Zeppelin thing comes out. And I put the video out and I went, I don't mean that. What the hell did I say that for? I never watch the extras in movies. I never listen to, because I don't want to hear a worse version. But fans do. A lot of fans, they eat it up.
Yeah.
So
I think, what I would like about it, I think what maybe some fans do, it's real. It's just real. Oh, yeah. It's like it's more human. It's like, this was an incredible work of art. This album was a masterpiece. But to get to that, the Beatles would go through 4 or 5 different versions of a song, the recording, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, there it is, there. So hearing that stuff's kind of a neat. That's way different than. I have stuff like that too, but.
Then you get the other side of that. If someone wants to come into the studio because they think it'll be really fun spending the afternoon in the studio with you, meanwhile you're spending 4 hours on a snare sound, and it's like someone being in the studio with me in radio. After an hour, they go, "This is it." I go, yeah.
I'll tell you, if you're spending 4 hours on a snare sound, you got the wrong snare, the wrong drummer, the wrong engineer, the wrong microphone. You're in the wrong studio and probably the wrong band. I don't know. The records that I'm most proud of in my career, the drum sound, like when we did Rockland, the drum sound was together in 10 minutes.
Really, eh?
Lou Millie, it was in Los Angeles. It was a beautiful studio. Paul DeVilliers, who'd worked with Yes, and as I say, Mr. Minister, he had all the right microphones. He had a beautiful console. was Los Angeles. Everything's wired properly. Everything's great. And it was like, put that fader up. There's the kick drum. Wow, that sounds pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah, let me get a little bit of that. Snare drum, bang. What? Listen to this. I'll do this. Yeah, holy, next thing you know, 15 minutes, like, we're good to go. Let's track. Let's go.
I don't hear a lot of that. Mind you, I'm talking to a lot of proggers, and that takes they go crazy. Another guy said, what did he say? Oh, Mood Street fades. Yeah, I remember that Mood Street. You think the song's over? It's like Godfather 3, where you think I'm out of it, but they suck me back in.
Comes back in, right?
Whose idea was
that? Is that
whose idea was that?
That was mine. Yeah, I remember fading out and then just saying to Paul, let's just bring it back in real quick for a little thing. And stupid ideas. Some of them are goofy ideas. But here's the deal. Here's what you do with anything you do. If I may offer any advice, is advice that actually Quincy Jones said to my producer, and he said, and they were talking about Thriller, and he said, you record something, you do it, and that's it. Don't look back. Don't sit there and just, you did that. That was a moment that happened. Bang. You're on to something else. It's like, of course, there's always going to be stuff you look back and go, Every album cover I look back and go, most of my outfits in the 80s, But just do what you do and move on and enjoy your life. Be in that moment and do what you feel.
You can't change the story. You can't change the story.
Yeah. By the way, I am being inducted into the Canadian Songwriting Hall of Fame. So it was a proud moment for me. Like I have gold records, I have platinum records, I have Juno Awards. Like when they told me that, I was like, what? You mean, like, we're talking Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, and there's a dysfunctional bunch of people. I'll fit right in. But do you think if we got together for a photo shoot, all of us, that I'd walk in and they go, you're not a girl? I don't know. Would they even know who I was?
Well, by the way, congratulations. I mean,
thank you.
It's not just a Canadian thing. When I'm surprised by how many people are, as you mentioned a while ago, sometimes self-deprecating, just little old me syndrome, which I think makes musicians work harder. It made me, when I was a musician, a serious musician, work really, really hard. I'd go see a drummer and I'd go, I'm going to work harder. I'm never going to get caught in a room being embarrassed. But so what was your first reaction when you found out?
Kind of disbelief, because I'm thinking I'd be the last one they would have picked for that. But yeah, I was kind of speechless. It was like, really? And they went, yeah, and not just a song. We want to induct your whole body of work. So I'm like, and then COVID hit and it didn't happen. So I just want you all to know that something happens to me, that was going to happen.
Patio Lanterns, your second biggest song on Spotify, you probably know. I'm sure they send you lots of money. Not really, no. Patio Lanterns, what was the inspiration behind that tune? I mean, I'm sure some fans heard that and went, wait a second. I even did. Yeah, but I still love that song.
Thank you. So do I. I'm proud of it. And in a life, in a career, it was a very different song for me. I'm a rock and roll guy, and all of a sudden Patio Lanterns is very straight. It was presented to me as such by lyricist Patio. He goes, literally, I was giving him a ride somewhere because he didn't have his driver's license, so I was always giving him a ride somewhere. And he as he was getting out of my van, which I had 375,000 kilometers on it. It was an old passenger van. He gets out. He goes, "I'm going to hand you this. It's kind of different. It's kind of straight. I've been kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to even give it to you, but I decided I'm going to give you this. Read it. If you throw it out, that's fine." So at a stoplight, I'm looking at it, and it's like, our house had the biggest patio. Our house had all the summer shade. I'm like, all of a sudden I got this blast of this image of me back home on my parents' back patio, and just it hit me like it hit other people. I was like, wow. And I pulled over, and I had an acoustic guitar. Pulled over in kind of east downtown Toronto, and pulled out my acoustic guitar, and I wrote the first verse, right there in the van, because it had 4 captain's chairs. I could.
Yeah. But every kid went through that.
I think I even left the van running at the time. I pulled out. I was like, I started doing the dum dam 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 dum dam. As this house had the biggest patio. I didn't. Then I packed it up. I think I might have had a little dictating machine. You know, those little tape machines.
Rock and Roll Duty. That was a big one. A lot of people ask me to ask you about Rock and Roll Duty.
Thank you. I remember sitting beside Joe Perry and Steven Tyler at an award show once, and we played that song. And then we're walking back to the dressing room. Just happened to be walking together, and Steven goes, "Hey man, how come that song isn't bigger, man? That song is what? What was that? It was amazing." He says, "Why isn't that a hit, worldwide hit?" You know, I'm doing a bad Steven Tyler thing, as you can tell, and I certainly don't look like him. But it was just nice to hear that. He's a sweet cat. He came to see you. Anyway, Rock and Roll Duty. It was that was written. I remember Pi coming over. I was just my wife at the time. We're just making dinner, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to slip over. I got some lyrics, and just want to, you know." So we came in, and I looked at it, and he's my rock and roll heartaches always end up as. I said, when's and my wife's doing? I went, okay, half an hour. Yeah, okay, great. I said, let's go upstairs, and I want to look at this. And we came down. I came down in time for dinner, and the song was done, top to bottom, full thing, like solo part, bridge part, the da da da, opening riff. That was the quickest song I think I ever wrote in my life.
Big budget video. That was a hell of a video.
Yeah, it was a bit. Yep, back in the day.
Yeah,
they're hurry up and wait fest. I always used to call videos hurry up and wait fest because you're sitting around waiting for lighting, waiting for this, waiting for that, and then go, okay, play it, bang, okay, back in the dressing room for 4 more hours because I got to set up something else.
Last song one, Paradise Skies. Again, I was 19, and that's actually the last album I bought before I left home. There you go, A Million Vacations.
I wrote that and left home. No, no. I don't. I wrote it and moved back home. No, I'm having trouble drawing something on that one.
You're doing well. It's cool. It's cool. That must have been satisfying with that album doing so well. I mean, that was.
Yeah. Once again, yeah. I remember sort of the sessions, and a friend of mine produced that record, John Beaudin, who I met when I did first leave home and quit school at 17. I moved to Toronto. And he was one of the first people I met in the music industry. He had a studio around the corner from where we lived, and randomly ran into him and went, "Hey, do you want to come hear our band practice?" And he was blown away, and we've kind of been friends since. And he produced commercials and stuff like that. And we just talked about, I'd play him demos, and he'd go, "Oh, I'd love to produce this. Here's what I do. Here's what I do." Like, okay, let's give it a go. So we did.
By the way, before I let you go, what was when you did leave home? What was in your record collection when you left home?
What was in my record collection when I left home?
When you left home?
That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that before.
I ask everyone that question.
When you left home, what was in my record collection?
Because that's an important time. That's a pivotal point.
Okay, so for your American audience, I was raised about 40 minutes from Detroit, on a Canadian border town. So I cross Port Huron, Michigan, and go down the road 40 minutes, and I'm in Detroit. So I was born and raised on Motown and Detroit rock and roll. So I'm going to mention a couple bands here. The Rationals, probably not many Americans will know that, but if you're from around the Detroit area, then you would. Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. The MC5, who I played with as a young kid. I didn't play in the band. We opened up for them. The National Guard was around the perimeter of the gig. And I remember little Steven talking to him once, and he just brought up the MC5. I was interviewing him, and he just brought up the MC5, and I went, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Yeah, I opened up for them at was it Ann Arbor or Kellogg? I can't remember." And he stopped in his tracks and went, "Did you just say you opened up for the MC5? I said, yeah, I was in a band in a little town called Sarnia, Ontario, and we opened up for the MC5. He goes, "Man, your cred just went right through the roof. It's like,
Oh my God.
so, and then Motown music was really, really hit me. It was and it still does to this day. It's a form of music I return to, and it's not in my music a lot. I don't hear it at all, but it really brings out like so many memories of me as a kid growing up, and just how it hooked me into loving music. It was just James Jamerson on the bass, and the classic dun, 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 those drum fills and the pocket, and just the songwriting and the singing. And as a matter of fact, this band that I was in, we went to. I'm not sure whether you want to leave this in the interview, but we went to Lewis the Hatter, which was the store where all these Motown artists used to buy their suits. So we needed suits. We're like young little 13, 14, 15-year-old guys, and we're going to get suits. And we hear Lewis the Hatter is the place to go do it because they suit up bands. And so we walk into this place, and it's a lot of Motown folks are buying their suits. There's lime green, there's red this, and polka dot that. And the guy comes up and it's like, what are you doing here? We're like, we want to buy suits. Like, why do you want to buy suits? And we're like, we're a band from Sarnia. He says, Sarnia? Where's Sarnia? We're like, well, it's down by Port Huron, Michigan. You guys are a band? We're like, yes. Like, okay, come on. And it was amazing. It was just so cool. It was such an amazing experience. And we went home. I still have a picture of me hanging in the hall of me wearing the pinstripe suit. None of them fit because they don't make suits for young 14, 15-year-old kids. But we walked out of there with 5 red pinstripe suits, double-breasted, and from Lewis the Hatter.
That's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
That was great. It was just great.
No, I appreciate you sharing.
I'm filling up because there was a time when there was a lot of racial tension back there, and there still is, and which is sad. And it was just one of the most beautiful experiences that I ever had in my life was walking in there, and we were afraid, we weren't anything, and yet we were aware of racial tension, but we're a band. We want to get our suits, and this is the place to get suits. So I don't know.
I hope you enjoyed that. We're on the verge of releasing a whole bunch of whole interviews from Canadian artists. And Kim seemed like a good choice right now. Notice he has all the gear, ready to do a radio show, which of course he has. That's why he had the whole get up and you could hear him clearly, no echo in the room or anything, which we appreciated, by the way. Remember, support Rock History Canada. All the links are in the description for our Instagram, our Facebook group. We have 2, Rock History Music and Rock History Canada. Join our Patreon, get early access to our videos. Also, you can make a donation or buy a t-shirt. I'm John Beaudin. Take care of yourself. This is Rock History Canada.